For over a century, statistics show the same pattern. Roughly 1% of people own 40 to 50% of all global wealth. Economists once called this natural inequality. But in 2014, researchers from the IMF and OECD ran computer models. They found that even with equal starting points, wealth always concentrates unless actively prevented. Investigators realized this wasn't luck or talent, it was a mathematical outcome of how the system is built, suggesting concentration is a feature, not a bug. In 1886, a Supreme Court ruling granted corporations the same rights as human beings. Declassified court records reveal railroad and banking lawyers deliberately engineered this interpretation. It allowed companies to live forever, merge endlessly, and accumulate wealth without limit. Investigations show this single legal shift created the ultimate wealth-concentrating machine. Unlike people, corporations never die, never retire, and never stop growing, funneling riches into fewer hands. Between 1870 and 1900, men like Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Morgan cornered entire industries. Senate hearings proved they used predatory pricing, secret rebates, and violence to crush competitors. They didn't just build businesses, they eliminated competition by design. Documents show they openly discussed controlling the flow of wealth. By 1900, they held 70% of U.S. industrial wealth. This wasn't success. It was a deliberate strategy to own the economy. Created in 1913 after secret meetings, the Fed was sold as a stabilizer. But internal memos from founders reveal a different goal: centralized control over money creation. Investigations show by setting interest rates and credit rules, they decide who gets to borrow and build. Cheap money flows first to big banks and corporations, letting them buy assets before prices rise. Ordinary people get it last, when it's expensive. The system funnels wealth upward by design. Since the income tax began in 1913, the richest Americans and largest corporations have spent billions lobbying to shape the laws. IRS records leaked over decades prove the tax code is filled with loopholes, exemptions, and offshore provisions written specifically for the top 0.1%. In many years, billionaires paid a lower rate than their secretaries. Investigators conclude taxation isn't about fairness. It's a tool adjusted constantly to ensure wealth stays where it is. Patents were meant to protect inventors, but investigations show they now concentrate wealth. Large companies file thousands of vague, broad patents, soften on ideas they haven't even developed to create monopolies. They sue small innovators out of existence. Pharmaceutical giants extend drug patents slightly to keep prices high for decades. The system now grants exclusive rights to entire industries, legally preventing competition and guaranteeing massive profits for the few. Official history calls it a collapse. But investigations into bank records from 1929 to 1933 reveal something else. While millions lost everything, the wealthiest families and institutions increased their holdings by 40%. How? They held cash while assets crashed, then bought farms, factories, and land for pennies. Memos show they knew the crash was coming. The Depression wasn't a disaster, it was a massive, deliberate transfer of real wealth from the public to the elite. Rockefeller, Carnegie, and others created massive charitable foundations. Publicly, they were for good. Internal documents reveal they were tax havens and power centers. Money moved into foundations is never taxed, stays under family control forever, and funds research and policy that benefits their business interests. Investigations found foundations are the perfect tool. They preserve wealth indefinitely, influence society, and appear generous while concentrating power. Every major war creates debt, and debt creates profit. Investigations prove the same banking and industrial families fund both sides of conflicts. Afterwards, they win the reconstruction contracts and lend the money to pay for it. WWI, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq reports show wealth concentration spikes immediately after. War is not just destruction. 'Tis a highly effective government-backed method to move public money into private hands. Data shows over 60% of Treasury officials trade representatives, and economic advisors come directly from top financial firms, then return to them. Investigations into their calendars reveal private meetings where laws are drafted by the industries they regulate. Free trade agreements, deregulation, and bailout rules are written to favor capital owners over workers. Policy isn't neutral, it is the primary mechanism used to design an economy that concentrates wealth. From the 1970s onward, a coordinated campaign dismantled rules built after the Depression. Glass-Steagall, antitrust laws, banking limits. Internal memos from think tanks funded by billionaires state clearly: regulation spreads wealth, deregulation concentrates it. Without limits, mergers exploded, monopolies returned, and risk-taking soared. Every removed rule was a deliberate step to allow wealth to flow upward without obstruction. The Panama and Pandora Papers exposed $32 trillion hidden offshore. Investigations prove these jurisdictions were created and maintained by the world's largest banks and law firms. They exist solely to hide ownership, avoid tax, and keep wealth within a closed circle. Only the richest 0.1% have access. This system effectively removes trillions from circulation, preventing it from being taxed or reinvested in the wider economy, locking it away in perpetuity. In the digital age, IP is the most valuable asset. Investigations show tech giants aggressively patent everything: software, genes, business methods, even plant life. They use global trade laws to force every nation to enforce these monopolies. This allows a handful of companies to charge rent on almost everything we do, use, or eat. It is a modern enclosure movement, fencing off the intangible world to ensure perpetual profit. Before 1982, it was illegal for companies to buy their own stock, was considered market manipulation. The Reagan administration changed the law. Since then, S&P 500 firms have spent over $10 trillion buying their own shares. This artificially inflates stock prices, enriching executives and large shareholders while starving the company of cash that could go to wages or investment. It is a direct, legal mechanism to move money from the company to the wealthy owners. The global economy runs on debt mortgages, student loans, credit cards, government bonds. Investigations show debt is not accidental. It is designed to be inescapable. Interest transfers money from those who have less borrowers to those who have more lenders. Since 1980, total global debt has grown 3x faster than the economy. It is a system built so that every transaction pays a toll to the financial class, steadily concentrating wealth over generations. Once free or low-cost, education was deliberately made expensive. In the U.S., tuition rose 500% since 1985, far above inflation. Investigations found lobbying by financial firms pushed for student loans to be non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. This created a system where only the wealthy can start life without debt, while others begin life in deficit. Debt filters out competition, ensuring that wealth and access remain within the same families. In the U.S., healthcare is not a service, it is the largest wealth transfer mechanism. Investigations prove drug prices, insurance premiums, and administrative costs are kept artificially high by legislation written by industry lobbyists. The system takes money from the middle and working classes and funnels it directly to pharmaceutical, insurance, and hospital shareholders. It ensures that sickness and health are both profitable for the elite. Antitrust laws were designed to break up power. But investigations show enforcement collapsed after the 1980s. Today, 4 or fewer companies control 80% plus of most industries: airlines, food, banking, tech, retail. Without competition, prices rise and wages fall. Economists confirm this concentration creates rentier capitalism, where you make money just by owning the market rather than producing. This structure guarantees wealth flows only upward. Land is finite, which makes it the ultimate tool. Investigations reveal large investment firms, sovereign wealth funds, and billionaires have spent trillions buying up single-family homes, farmland, and commercial property. They keep units vacant or rent them at high prices. They bank land, waiting for value to rise. By controlling housing, they control the cost of living and ensure that ordinary people can never build equity, only pay rent to the owners. Moving away from gold in 1971 gave central banks total power over currency value. Investigations show they deliberately manage inflation to erode savings. Inflation hits cash holders hardest, the middle class and poor, while asset owners stocks. Real estate see values rise. Every time money is printed, purchasing power moves from the saver to the asset owner. It is a hidden tax, carefully calibrated to widen the gap. Over decades, investigations confirm a pattern. Industries fund the agencies meant to police them. The FDA is funded by drug companies. The SEC is funded by Wall Street. The FAA by airlines. Whistleblowers reveal regulators see themselves as partners, not watchdogs. Rules are designed to protect existing giants and make it impossible for new entrants to survive. The law becomes a wall that protects wealth from being challenged. Whenever a wealth tax or inheritance tax is proposed, massive lobbying campaigns kill it. Investigations show the same groups fund think tanks that publish studies claiming such taxes destroy the economy, despite evidence to the contrary. Inheritance taxes were gutted so wealth passes intact from generation to generation. The ability to pass on fortunes untouched ensures that wealth concentration becomes permanent dynasties, not just temporary success. 6 corporations control 90% of global media. Investigations prove their boards overlap with banks, pharma, and defense firms. They consistently promote the idea that inequality is natural, that rich people earned it, and that taxing them hurts everyone. They distract from structural issues by focusing on individual stories. Media ensures the public never realizes the system is rigged, preventing the political will to change it. Globalization was sold as lifting all boats. Investigations show it was actually designed to let capital move freely while labor stayed behind. Corporations moved production to low-wage nations, destroyed local industries, and sold back products cheaply. Profits skyrocketed, wages stagnated. It allowed owners to pit workers against each other, driving labor costs down. Wealth moved from workers in rich nations and producers in poor nations straight to the top. Tech giants use network effects. The more people use them, the more power they have. Investigations show they buy or copy every competitor before they can grow. Amazon, Google, Meta, Alibaba, they control the infrastructure of the economy. Take a cut of every transaction, every ad, every search. They didn't just build businesses. They built new layers of toll roads over society, ensuring every digital penny flows through their hands. Economics departments are heavily funded by wealthy families, foundations, and banks. Investigations show the dominant theories taught supply-side trickle-down. Efficient markets were funded specifically to justify concentration. They argue inequality drives growth, despite data proving the opposite. Universities produce the experts that advise governments. The science itself was influenced to ensure the system is described as natural, not constructed. Insurance is supposed to spread risk. Investigations show the industry actually concentrates wealth. They collect small premiums from millions, invest that money in assets, and pay out only when forced. They deny claims, raise rates, and exclude risks. Life, health, property insurance companies are among the largest owners of capital in the world. They turn collective fear and risk into massive, permanent wealth for their shareholders. Water, electricity, roads, and broadband were public, affordable, and widely owned. Since the 1980s, privatization campaigns pushed by the World Bank and IMF sold these assets cheaply to private firms. Investigations show prices rose 300 to 500% after sale. Essential services became profit centers. What was once shared wealth became private income. Privatization is the final step, turning the things everyone needs into streams of payment for the few. Every crisis, war, pandemic, recession triggers a transfer. Naomi Klein's investigations confirmed the shock doctrine. Elites use confusion to pass laws that concentrate wealth further. During COVID, billionaires gained $3.9 trillion, while 100 million fell into poverty. During the 2008 crisis, banks were saved, homeowners were ruined. Crisis is not a bug. It is a scheduled event used to accelerate concentration. Studies show 70% of wealthy families lose it by the second generation, 90% by the third, lest they use trusts, foundations, and corporations. Investigations reveal the richest families never lose it. They use complex legal structures that survive forever. The Rockefellers, DuPont, Walton, and Koch fortunes are now multi-generational and larger than ever. Wealth isn't just passed down. It is legally protected to form a permanent aristocracy. When researchers modeled the rules, we have compound interest, limited liability, patents, zero inheritance tax. They find one inevitable result: total concentration. It is basic math. If money makes money and nothing stops it, eventually one entity owns everything. The fact that we are moving steadily toward that outcome proves the rules were designed to let compound interest work only for the owners of capital, never for workers. Critics say it's just how markets work. But investigations show every major shift that increased inequality was the result of specific lobby for legislation. Repealing Glass-Steagall, changing buyback rules, cutting top tax rates, creating offshore havens. These were choices made by politicians funded by the wealthy. It wasn't accidental evolution. It was a step-by-step construction project. They built the machine, and it works exactly as intended. Why do it? Investigations into elite meetings and leaked papers reveal the ultimate goal: control. Concentrated wealth means concentrated power. It allows shaping laws, culture, technology, and geopolitics. Wealth is not just money. It is the ability to decide how society functions. By concentrating it in a few hands, a small group effectively governs the world without ever standing for election. After analyzing laws, tax codes, historical records, lobbying data, and economic models, the conclusion is undeniable. Wealth is not naturally distributed. It is deliberately concentrated through legal, political, and financial mechanisms designed over 150 years. The inequality we see today is not a failure of the system, it is the success of the plan. The gap exists because it was built to exist. Knowing it is deliberate changes everything. It means the system is man-made, and therefore it can be remade. The concentration isn't inevitable. It is sustained by rules we choose to keep. The investigation ends with this truth: as long as the rules reward ownership over work and capital over people, wealth will keep climbing upward. The question is not, is it deliberate? But what are we going to do about it?